around, we will return to his photography and such afterwards. But so Doug Goodman, the first thing I want to ask, man, is I notice a huge amount, a huge proliferation of animal wranglers and handlers and trainers who make animals such as dogs and even velociraptors into police, uh, you know, animals. And so I'm just wondering, what is the story? Do you have a background in doing that with dogs in your own life, or someone you know?
No, I do. It's been a lot of fun. I got involved in search and rescue operations. God, back 10, 15 years ago at least. No, closer to 20. Let's say closer to 20 years ago, to be perfectly honest. And that's how it all started. Was you're doing the search and rescue work, training the dogs, going through all the regimen, how to set everything up. And that's where you start wondering, well, what if it wasn't a dog? What if it wasn't just a person you're looking for? To be perfectly honest, like, my thing is horror. I love horror, or at least back then it was huge to me. And so when you're looking at it and they say, well, you can either search for live people who are like on a trail, or you can search for live people who are just out there, right? Like, imagine a tornado has hit a trailer park, and you've got to go in there and send a dog in there and find all the people who are, maybe under rubble, stuff like that. So that's option two. Option three is go out there and find dead people. And I was like,
Mm.
what self-respecting horror writer could not go do that third one? So that's the way I went. That was my avenue into all this.
So are you saying that you have a history indirectly in law enforcement by training police animals? Is that what you said? Or,
Not police. This is search and rescue. These are volunteer. We assist the police, and really, it's any kind of we've assisted VFD, we've police, uh, county. It's whoever's needing it. We're more than willing to bring our dogs out there and do the search.
Now, I noticed there's a very antagonistic relationship, particularly in the Dead Dog series. Cadaver Dog is book one, Dead Dog is book two, and I guess Zombie Dog is book three, and it goes on from there. And
Yeah,
each title spoils the idea a little bit more. But so in Cadaver Dog, when she's trying to get her dog approved uh, as a hunter of these wasp-like creatures that plug into the back of someone's spinal system, or their
yeah.
spines, or their brains, or both, and they turn them into zombies. And she's trying to get him certified, her dog Murder, as certified to track down these wasps and zombies as well. Which are the result of the wasp, and there's a very antagonistic relationship with the people who she's trying to get him certified through. So have you dealt with that in real life, the bureaucracy of it, and people like
You
out
do.
there?
You see it, and there's all this. It's one thing to train the dog, be able to say you can do it. It's another thing to say, well, how do you certify? How can you tell people it actually does it? And that was one of the parts that I felt was just so much fun writing. Was you're kind of untethered here, trying to say, and you come up in your mind, well, how would you even certify a dog to track a zombie? And what would that look like? And what would those scenarios be? And how do you figure it all out? And even starting way back in the basic is, how would a dog find a zombie, right? And to put it more in perspective from my standpoint, is like, if you said, oh, well, here's a piece of a dead person, go find the dead person. Well, now you've got a zombie that's finding every body in the graveyard, right? But you want the one that's walking away. So it became the challenge of how would you get the zombie to find that particular one? And that's where I was looking back into biology in the natural world, and I was looking at emerald wasps, and some of these, that what they where they zombify cockroaches. And I just sat there and went, well, what if it wasn't a cockroach? What if it was a corpse? And that's basically what the scenario that plays out. So now you've got the dog. While it's a zombie hunting dog, it's really more accurate to say it's a wasp hunting dog. But now you've got that core. How do they get in there? And then once they're in there and trying to figure all this out, you'll then have all these different ideologies and organizations who are also struggling and saying, well, how do we work with this, and how do we know you're actually doing the stuff we want you to do? And it becomes such a great little show when you're watching it that way. You're going through it and seeing all the different things that can happen.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think
Um,
that's
Why in this
a
universe do
pretty
you have to try to find a zombie, right? You typically the
Right.
zombies find you, so why do you have to find a zombie in this particular world?
Yeah, and that's I'm glad you. So that's where you start looking at again. There's that whole how do you? It's kind of rewriting the zombie apocalypse kind of a thing. And I think I make a couple of cuts at that where people look around and say, "Wow, this really is this what the zombie apocalypse is like?" Because you anticipate kind of like a Walking Dead scenario where it's hundreds of thousands of zombies just piling in on everyone, and you're running from this often slow methodical wave of human flesh. And right, it's like, so why would you go find that? Why would you go searching for that? And so that's where you say, well, with the emerald wasps and stuff, when they're looking at the cockroaches, they're using it as part of their reproductive cycle. That's a lot of what wasps do. They pretty much eat
Mhm.
nectar, and unless they're really angry or mad at us, they tend to leave most things alone until it gets to that point where they need to reproduce. And that's where they'll need a cockroach, or in this case, a corpse. They'll use the corpse, and then what they would do is they take over the corpse, go looking for uh, children or the elderly, pull them in, put them in a den, shoot them up with the chemicals that they've got in their I don't want to say their venom, but
Right.
the different chemicals that the wasp has. And then it's lay a couple of eggs and walk away. So now you've got, and that's part of what becomes it. It becomes, well, why would you want to search for zombies? And there's this theory that, well, what about these missing people? And they start to make the connection between the missing children and what possibly is happening to them. And so now you've got a real reason to not just get a zombie, but get it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
yeah.
That's an
Zombies.
That's
interesting.
really
It's
cool.
an
Got
interesting twist on it. So yeah, go ahead, Ben. I'm sorry.
yeah. Well, I was gonna say zombies kind of got oversaturated within the past like decade or so, and I think you came up with a really creative take on the idea.
Thank you. That's what I've really enjoyed is just that twist of how do you do this in a different way? How do you come up with a new way to present a zombie? And just like The Walking Dead or something, it's important to have a really cool zombie, something that they can really go after. But it's also really important to concentrate in this case on the people, even the dogs that are searching for the zombies. What are their lives like? And that is something where I was able to pull in all this, background detail from the searches and the wonderful people I've met and the things that everybody goes through, and you really start to humanize the people and these the working dogs who are out there hunting for the zombies. So you've got a real connection to all of it.
how long do you think you can keep this going for? Because book 4 is called Ghost Dog, and I don't even know how that even works in a bureaucratic like law enforcement or in independent rescue search and rescue setting. I mean,
Right. And that's by the time Zombie Dog and Ghost Dog are happening, one of the things was I started in Colorado because I'd been to Colorado many times and I enjoyed it. But by God, I'm here in Houston. So by the time it's Zombie Dog and Ghost Dog, I can have them here in Houston and really almost like searching through some of the bayous and canals and streets that I've been down, and you can really get down into Houston and what would be the problems of zombies here, right? So that was a real fun one. But yeah, Ghost Dog, there's Ghost Dog out there. I've finished the rough draft of Murder Dog, and that one's going to be very different from the other dog or
that one
from the other
sounds like
books.
it comes full circle because the dog's name is Murder.
Yeah, exactly. And that one, the big challenge there is that when you're reading the books, most of them are done, I'd say, not from Angie's perspective. You're getting her thoughts as she's going through, and Angie's the handler for Murder. Occasionally, it starts in the book you're showing Zombie Dog. It starts showing up there where you start getting a bit of Murder's perspective on a search. Ghost Dog, I think, will even have almost entire chapters of his perspective on what's going on. When you get to the book Murder Dog, it's in the inverse. Everything is Murder's perspective. It's what he is going through, and it becomes actually kind of a homeward bound kind of a story,
I'm
but with
curious to see how
zombies
you
and
pull
monsters.
that off.
Yeah, me too.
Yep.
It was a real challenge, but there's a lot of stuff that I'd set up because one of the questions that I find interesting about this is when you're taking a character like Murder and you're saying, well, he's essentially a rescue dog, right? He's a dog that you don't know his background except for when Angie first comes into contact with him.
Mhm.
So this was also a way to kind of give, I hate to say his origin story because that makes him sound like a superhero, but it gives
Kinda
where
is.
he came from, what was happening to him first.
He kind of is a superhero, though. I mean, he saved Angie so many times, and that's how you come to love him. Is and sympathize with him. Is I think by the end he gets bitten or scratched of book one. Cadaver Dog, he gets bitten or scratched by a zombie, and something tells me that's kind of what leads to the title of book three, is that he probably slowly transforms. I'm still about like 15% into book two, Dead Dogs, so I mean, I don't know all the details.
Just you'll see it. It all comes through. There are zombie dogs. Part of it was, and I'll say to a certain extent, getting away from Murder. It's you have wasps and you have one species, but then other species start to appear and they start interacting with the world in different ways. And one of them is the appearance of actual zombie dogs. So
Wow.
that does come into to be a factor.
Something else is how you tend to make the supernatural, not even the supernatural, but just these biological anomalies such as zombies and dinosaurs, a regular feature of your world. I don't get a sense of a zombie apocalypse. I get a sense of, like, I don't know, mountain lions encroaching on an area that, an Appalachian area or something like that, or like
Right.
snakeheads in Florida. I get a sense of like a biological, sociological phenomenon instead of an apocalyptic approach in your writing. And that's really refreshing. How were you able to make dinosaurs such a believable feature of your little world? I mean,
Oh man, it comes from being a kid who grew up loving dinosaurs. Yeah, I enjoy it. I always have, and so it was one of those. You kind of got these things going on in the background of your head, and then you've got up there Terrible Lizard. Love that book,
me
and
too.
it that one truly is. It's about dinosaurs, right? Dinosaurs and humans living alongside each other, and again taking the working animal perspective. That one being much more about looking at a police animal, right? So you're looking and saying, well, how does the police animal work, and how does a handler work with them? Again, it's how do you train this animal to go out there and do its job? And it's just something I've always had in my mind, but it really was one of those where I went, yeah, how much more interesting or harder would it be if it was a dinosaur, if it was a velociraptor that you're training instead of, a German Shepherd or a Labrador Retriever or something like that? And that really fed into it. Was just like you say, it's like it becomes so much more intense. I know everybody says think Jurassic Park, but that's where I think the modern conception of what a velociraptor looks like and acts like comes from. And then you say, okay, now I'm going to have it working alongside someone absolutely trained, fully functioning, fully adapted personality that's in this animal. And what does that look like? How does that go? I mean, you don't really have a basis for it. I'll be honest. When I was looking at it, even though I'm more of a dog-minded person, when I was looking at these, is more of cats and birds. And it was somewhere between a cat and a bird is where Banshee, that's the name of the velociraptor. That's where Banshee exists, somewhere between a cat and a bird.
Well, we did have a new a visitor, Jason the asshole, or Jason Knox, but I don't know. He left as soon as he got here.
Oh no.
Scared him
But
off.
he's okay. There he is again. Jason, are you familiar with Doug's work? Did you have a question? You're more than welcome to stay. But hello.
No, I know him. I talk to him all the time.
Oh yeah, I gave him the link. Yeah, Jason. If you figure out your gear, can you hear us? Okay. Well, you keep working on that, buddy. And Chris, like I said, Chris, uh, we moved on, but Chris had to go to record his next episode of No Country podcast with J. David Osborne. But he was a lot of fun to talk to. And so, getting back to Doug's interview here, so there's a long history in Terrible Lizard, and this book really surprised me of just how you were able to make it plausible, and because the first thing when I saw the cover is I thought, oh man, this is going to be a total, this is going to be a total disaster because I can't see this being plausible. And then the trick of how you were able to make it believable. And so I couldn't give it 5 stars, but it was passable enough for me to give it 4. And and that's a compliment.
Thank you. Yeah,
I was expecting it to just fall apart, the concept to fall apart on its own, but you really made it work. And of course the main character who takes Banshee on as his subject, his quote unquote I don't know, rescue animal or whatever. And he is in law enforcement. He's not
right.
an independent, entity. He takes this charge on, and I mean, he basically has to turn his life over to training this velociraptor. Not much room for rest because you're handling a wild animal, a relic of a wild animal. And
Right.
but it's amazing how he falls in love with Banshee and doesn't mind, all the added responsibility. So they really have to have a relationship that shines through for that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great chaos in that one.
So what's the motivation, or why train a Velociraptor canine unit? What's the threat that you would need such a thing?
That's one of the things that comes up is in this world, like I said, there are still dogs that are still used. The idea, of course, is that dinosaurs never really died out, and they're there. So it's what I think that's a great question: is what would you use them for? And it becomes, for the most part, it's violent offenders.
Okay.
And so it's the idea, kind of what we would expect. This thing is kind of a little monster, right?
Right.
You're
right.
only bringing them out against the worst kind of people who aren't going to behave nicely. This
Okay.
isn't your typical we're pulling somebody over, stop car kind of a thing. This is somebody who's a known entity, a known quantity. There's a history of something going on there, and they are used primarily for the intimidation factor, and that
Okay.
becomes a lot of the fun. And I don't want to use that word lightly, but the book is a very fun book, and I think one of the opening chapters is him being the officer Oak Jones being introduced to Banshee, where Banshee is being put on display for the police force to see him work, and they're like, "Oh, okay, here. What we're gonna have you do is put on the bite suit," which we've all seen the bite suits that you see with working dogs, like shoots hunting.
Right.
It's this big thick thing, and they tell them, "Okay, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna go. We're gonna give you the command. You go run across this field." And the raptor is going to come after you, right? Now, once the raptor gets you, don't struggle, don't fight the raptor. This is the first thing, just go down for it, right? And the guy's like, okay, great, I want to be on this. He doesn't know Banshee is who they're thinking to be his partner. He's just like, okay, here's this raptor. I'm willing to do anything I can to join up, right? So they tell him to go. He starts running, and he says, like, man, I get like what feels like 2 or 3 steps. I'm out there. He's like, and I kind of look back, and they release the raptor. He's like, and then you see that dinosaurian eyes just kind of focus on me, and he runs at me, claws out, mouth open, and he's kind of getting that, oh my God, things start going in slow motion as he realizes, the dinosaur can go so much faster than he can. Comes out with those open claw coming at him. And of course, there's a safety on the claw, which of course there's a reminder that the safety on the claw is for his health, so he can survive it. Impales him, knocks him down, and like anybody, he's like, oh, that was the worst thing I could imagine in my life. He gets up to try to run, even though he's been told don't do it. He's just gunning on instinct. And then the raptor just starts thrashing him around. and it's done in such a fun way that it's like, oh, now that's your partner. You know, you've just got your butt totally kicked in about 5 seconds by this raptor. This is who you're going to be training, by the way.
You're not going to put up too much resistance for a dinosaur. Jason, you audible man? Hey, Jason. Okay.
So did you say that the
Can you hear us,
officer character's name is Oak Jones? Is that what you said?
Oak Jones. I hate to say, I knew somebody. I met somebody named Oak Jones, and it's
That's
one
a
of those
great
things.
name.
I used to laugh about that name, where it's like, you know, it's such a like detective,
Right.
you know, kind of name. You know, it's just Oak Jones. Oh, Oak Jones. You know, he's fights anything. Oak Jones is good. And I was coming up with this, and I needed a name, and it was like, oh, that's Oak. Put
Yeah, I
Oak
like
in
that
here.
name.
Oak would be the person who gets the raptor. You know, not Bob.
Right.
Oak gets
Right.
it.
Right.
And before we, I'll tell you one of the cool things about it. So my brother, he was a police officer. My younger brother, he's got an amazing story. But he was worked in the Travis County sheriff's office for a number of years. Okay, and my father and my mother, when I was just a little kid, they used to breed German shepherds, and occasionally some were actually used by, I think it was the Baltimore Police Department at the time. So I grew up with, and in later in life, received all this wealth of stories about what it's like owning, you know, the dog and the relationship and the things that go on with it. And I really did take all these stories that I've heard, either growing up or I can say later in life, just me, my father, my brother sitting around the table, throwing out, spinning these stories. We're not making them up. These things really did happen between my search and rescue and some of the stuff they were going through. And that's where it just came. It was like, this thing is absolutely just an assembly of all these stories. And that's what's like, for a story about dinosaurs, there's a lot of truth in that one.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely, just a lot of stuff.
I think we can hear you now, Jason.
Yeah, Jason, did you have a question for Doug, man? Welcome to the show.
Oh, God damn it. Come
We can
on.
hear
I'm
you.
using my phone this time.
Dude, we can hear you. Yeah, I guess you can't hear
Guess
us.
you can't hear us.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
So,
I honestly don't know what this dude is talking about, but I told that what he's. I can't fucking do it. Shit. Hello?
yeah, we can hear you.
What are you guys talking about? All I heard was dinosaur.
Yeah,
Dinosaur.
he writes about a world in which dinosaurs and zombies. Okay, wow, he really is an asshole. But all right, we'll forgive him. Okay, I think that's it for Jason tonight. But maybe someday in the future. I think that's enough for now, Jason. We're going to continue, man, because it's like in and out, in and out. But it's nothing personal. You know, it's cool. It's cool.
I do have to chastise him for using the Lord's name in vain. But other than that, I wish he'd come back.
Well, I kind of want to move on with the discussion. I gave it a chance, you know, and I'm not sore at him. I appreciate him checking on me the other day with my dad and everything. But we're gonna move on, Jason. You know, appreciate you listening, brother, and I mean that. Nothing personal. But Doug, so something else that you tend to weave into your world is these. Well, not only the kaiju's, but is the Wendigo book series. So like Wendigo Road, Wendigo Woods, right?
Yeah, the Wendigo Road. That was another one that I enjoyed. It was, you're trying to figure this stuff out, and Wendigos are just such a awesome, terrifying creature to me. Right? I remember being a kid and reading some short stories about Wendigo's child and stuff like that, and it kept you up at night, shaking in your bed sheets. So when the opportunity came up, I said, let's do this one. So Wendigo Road. That one I was up. I spent some time up in Montana, and that's where that one came about. Was just imagining this kind of post-apocalyptic Montana world, where you've got these giant, and you can see on the cover there, almost kaiju size Wendigos that are roaming the round, and of course, like Wendigos, they're eating people and doing things like that. So I got to do a little soldiers going through trying to travel what's considered the Wendigo Road to return one soldier to the other side of Montana. And just gruesome, brutal. It's Wendigos.
Hmm?
They're right up there. I don't know why more isn't written about Wendigos. They're just that kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah. What is the difference between your take on Wendigos and others? Because it's become a lot. They've become a lot more. People basically realize that they ran out of things to do with Bigfoot and werewolves and vampires and whatnot, and so a lot of people are gravitating towards Wendigos. And then there was that video game Until Dawn, which made them like legendary, mainstream for the first time. And so, I mean.
I mean, first of all, they're giant Wendigos, right? I mean, that's atypical, isn't it?
Yeah, usually it seems like it's a spirit or an entity, something like that. But it's pretty much, it's a pretty decent size, regular size kind of a thing. It's not gargantuan thing that's roaming the woods trying to pick up people and eat them.
Right.
So yeah, that was a big thing. And part was just just checking out images and coming up with the stuff in your head where it's you want to do some skull face monsters that are eating humans and kind of in this one kind of taking vengeance against humanity for what it's done to the earth, and that's how they come about. So it's an angry spirit for sure, but it's a vengeful spirit too.
The kind of spirits they are, is it that is it the location based spirit? What do they call it? Genius, LOCI, loci, genius loci. Would it that the kind of spirit it would be, or more of a trickster spirit, or what?
That's a good question. I hadn't really thought of that one before.
You've heard of genius loci, right?
No, I've heard trickster. I haven't heard genius loci. What is that?
It's like a place where bad things have happened and the ground has been tainted with the things that have happened there, maybe more than one thing. And the ground becomes, well, not even corrupted, but just it becomes kind of its own protector. Like it forms a sentient conscience, like the Amityville house. You could say that that's genius loci.
Right.
Let's see.
Well,
Haunted House is a good example of genius loci overall, but also, maybe places, I don't know, in the jungle where things have happened, or places where there may have been like a major car pileup or
wow.
spree murders or something.
Yeah.
Where those things took place, and they kind of develop their own life in fiction, where they can protect that a certain location from other people trying to trespass and do things.
Well, and the really cool thing on these is just so it is definitely not a genius loci, because the idea is stuff like this, these kind of giant monsters are cropping up all over the world and going to war against humanity. So it really does become soldiers versus giant, tall elk, buffalo skull monsters that are just trying to eat anything in its path.
Mm.
In fact, the opening of it is that they're coming in on a plane, and as they're trying to land, a Wendigo comes running out of the woods or whatever, hits the side of the plane and is trying to take them out. That was actually based on that Montana trip I did. We had we had some plane malfunctioning that was going on.
Uh-oh.
Where the plane started to fill, the fuselage started to fill with smoke, and it was coming out of the AC unit, and they had to turn us around and bring us back down. And man, I don't know if y'all have ever had an experience like that where, for me it was you're up in the air, the fuselage is just you're sitting there and you see the smoke going, and because this is happening on takeoff, they can't just go back down. They've got to fully take off, circle around, get clearance to come back down and come back down. And you're just kind of going, well, what happens. It really was one of those moments where you go, there's nothing I can do to control this. Wow. I don't pilot the plane. I can't do anything to the situation except to hope that it doesn't fill with smoke and we asphyxiate and die. Yeah. Have any of y'all been through something like that?
I've been on planes. I can't imagine that feeling of powerlessness. Yeah. Gregor, have you experienced turbulence in the air?
I've experienced auto accident where the car rolled over a few different ways, and it was the same feeling of that you can't do anything about it. You know, as a passenger, backseat passenger.
Ben,
Yeah,
have you?
I have. Yeah.
Like what?
Well,
Like in a plane?
Oh, yeah. Much like you, I've experienced planes.
But have you experienced turbulence on a plane?
Yeah,
How bad was it?
it's part of it. I
Part of
just
it.
assume. I don't know. I just assume I'm gonna die 24/7, and then I don't have any expectations about it landing safely.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah,
What about you, Zach? Have you ever flown in a plane? I don't think you have you?
Yeah, I've flown on planes multiple times.
Ever had any rough spots like he's talking about?
No, I've never had anything like that on a plane, but I wrecked an ATV once and almost crushed my hand because it like flipped over and it was like next to a mountain. And I was stupid and put my hand out, and then the bar came down and like landed right on my hand. But it had been raining and stuff, so stuff was muddy, so it just pushed my hand in.
Damn.
Was it the roll cage that hit your hand?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's brutal. That's,
Yeah, I was scared because like the fact that I didn't feel anything made me scared because I'm like, oh, the nerves are gone.
Oh.
But
right.
it's actually just because it went in the mud.
I hear a dog barking. Is that a search and rescue dog or just a domestic? You know.
It's not on my end. I don't think if it is, it's a
It's
domestic
on my
one.
end.
Oh, okay.
So I've got a question for you. I've heard this stated before. I don't know how true it is, right? So you probably know. So the search and rescue dogs, they actually have like a vest or something that they wear, like a uniform for their duty.
Some of them do. Some of them don't. It really depends
Okay.
on the group. I really like that. I remember someone telling us their theory, and I did like that because you can get the vest, SAR dog, and
Right.
put little patches on for different certifications and things the dog has done. And this one person said, "Yeah, but if they send me down a back alley because in Houston because somebody else shot somebody, and it's go find the body, right? And if you don't know, but if the murderer is still there, right? And they
Mhm.
look out there and they see the dog searching for it because they see the vest and everything.
Right.
Well, shoot the dog, right?
Right.
That takes care of the problem. Yeah, I mean, the reality is that laws are very different for killing an animal versus killing a human. You know, whether it's right or wrong, it's
Right.
just the reality of it. It would suck for the operation, right? It's like, oh, the operation didn't work, the dog died. But for the handler, oh, that's crushing. It's devastating. So it's put to me, why risk it? Just if you're going to do a harness, just, I always use just a basic harness. That's
Okay.
all it was. Basic chest harness. You can tie the leash to it when needed, depending on whether there's a leash law or not. Send the dog out to search, and hope for the best.
Because what I had heard was this: that when like a dog that's trained to be either like a canine dog or like some sort of a working dog, right? That's maybe
Right.
that when they're wearing their vest, right? They're exceedingly disciplined, but when they're at home and you take off their vest, they're like any other dog, and they'll go up and get your ham sandwich off the table or whatever the case may be. Is that
Oh,
true?
yeah. Absolutely. They're pets.
Okay.
I've often said the search and rescue dog I trained for the longest time, his name was Mojo. And murder in the books is based on Mojo. He doesn't look like him, but
Right.
the attitude and everything is there. And I've often said I'll cuss on it a bit and say Mojo was an asshole. He just was. He would sneak stuff. He would steal things. He would get into people's way. He was always messing with people's head.
Right.
And that's just the way he was. But he was pretty darn good at finding dead people.
Right.
Or
So when he
dead
was on the
things.
job, he was a totally different dog. Is that what you're saying?
Once you got him,
Yeah.
he had a bit of a, not to go too much into, he had a bit of cattle dog in him.
Mhm.
So if you could convince him that this was the thing to do, he
Right.
was all in. If you couldn't convince him this is the thing to do, he would give you the paw and walk away and be like, yeah, I don't want to do this.
Right.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I remember one of his big educational moments, and I guess for mine as well, was I had bought a puppy dog for my daughter, and it was a Labrador. We brought the Labrador out, and I was training both the dogs at one point. Sent Mojo out there, said, "Hey, go find this." He goes out there and looks at me, gives me the paw, and is like, "Yeah, I don't want to do this." I'm like, "Fine, I've got this other dog I want to train to do it." Brought the other dog out. It was Princess because it's my daughter's dog. Brought Princess out. Princess goes out there. She's a dopey little Labrador. She does her thing and she finds it, and I congratulate her and give her the little dog biscuit or whatever. And I go to put them both up in the back gate of the truck and go home. Pull down the gate, put Princess in. Mojo jumps out of the truck. He jumps out of the truck, runs across the field. He's behind me. I can't see what's going on. I want to make sure the little puppy's all contained before I do anything with the other dog. Put the puppy up, turn around. Mojo's run across the field straight in. I see a dog right there. Runs across. He's right there, perfectly on it, and looking at me like, boom, I found it. Love me. I did it.
Right.
And after that, he had very little problems. Jealousy worked for that dog.
Right. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you also have I feel like this is like the secret is not quite out on this other series you have, but it's like a kaiju based series, and does it start with kaiju not as in astronaut kaiju not?
Yeah, well, I wrote those are separate books, Kaiju Fall and Kaiju Not. What's the name of your cat, by the way?
Charlie, that's one of them.
One of them? Charlie Go. So I wrote two separate kaiju books. It was really fun to write. I love kaiju. I've always gotten into it. Just the giant monsters that are running around destroying things is something I am down for. Yeah. So I wrote Kaiju Fall, and the idea there was, you take any of these, what was it? Godzilla versus King Kong just happened, right? Yeah, kaiju. One of the kaiju is killed. They fall on Tokyo or wherever it is, and the question was, what happens after it? Well, what happens to the city? What goes on? What happens when another kaiju comes up? Kaiju Not was more of thinking of going to explore a different world and finding out that there's kaiju on that world. So it's astronauts who think they're going around this dead world, and then they're finding out there's kaiju roaming around. So you do get a bit of like small mechs versus very large kaiju, but none of these mech, NASA, none of this is, military style. There's no machine guns, anything like that. All they've got are the tools that they would normally use to go explore, right?
They're not prepared for dealing with giant aliens, maybe like little aliens their size or a little bigger, but not full-fledged skyscraper sized.
Right. They're probably not even equipped to deal with little aliens, really.
They should be, but
right. It's well, in this one, this one was kind of fun. So there's the idea is that you've discovered a dead civilization on another planet, right? So you're going to go explore the civilization, find out what's going on, what happened to it. So it's very much more archaeological until you arrive and essentially set off the kaiju that show up, and you're going, oh my God. Well, not only is it there's giant monsters, but you're also light years away from being able to run. It's nobody can help you. There's no way you can be helped. There's no way that somebody can say, "Oh, we'll send in the military to shoot it up" or something. It's like it's 5 or 6 people, and granted, part of the cool thing is there's that whole it's astronauts. They got the right stuff. These are some of the best of the best kind of a thing. But yeah, it's still all they got is themselves.
Yeah, so
that sounds like a pretty cool concept.
It does. Well, first off, what did you think of the Kong versus Godzilla movie? Have you seen it yet?
I saw it. Here's because I've heard there are people who hate it, and people it's got its haters and it's got its lovers. To me, these movies will always have a special place in my heart for 2 reasons. Okay, number one, as someone who grew up with kaiju being men in rubber suits, or that Godzilla movie from, was it 99 or something? These are done so much better from a standpoint of the CGI looks good. You can see there's a lot of care taken into the development of Godzilla or Kong. So I've to see these giant monsters up there done rendered in CGI, unleashing hell. I'm enjoying it. It's great. From the other standpoint, it's the kind of movie my kids, we can all sit around, enjoy, and cheer and scream and have fun with. So they are a lot of fun. Yeah, that's to me, it's worth it right there.
So is there a winner, or do they team up and fight a bigger enemy?
I'm going to say that there was a winner, and then they do team up after there's a winner. There is definitely a clear-cut winner, because one of them, seems like they're dying at one point as a result of the battle. However, within the one in,
just tell us which one it is. I want to
know. No, you're always the one that's always on me about spoiling things.
Yeah, but I mean,
I'm gonna say.
I don't want to say it is kind of like a dumb thing. I mean, it's fun, but it's like it doesn't really matter.
We must know if it's the nuclear lizard or the giant monkey.
The lizard or the monkey.
It kind of does matter, but Gregor, I'm sure you don't want me to spoil it, right?
Well, I mean, let's say no. I don't want you to spoil it, right? But I just wanted to know because I was talking to folks and I was like, there's not going to be a winner because you gotta satisfy both fan bases. They gotta team up to battle a bigger threat, right?
I'm gonna say that there was a winner, and then
if one of them didn't die, there wasn't a winner.
The one that almost died, or at least severely injured, found a renewed sense of purpose and got their ass up in order to fight the menace, which
like the Hulkamania type of thing, right?
Yeah. I probably wouldn't say even what the menace is that they team up against, but it pops up so late in the proceedings that I feel like it was just kind of last minute. And I get the sense that this was a rushed project because they planned a different movie. I'm pretty sure they planned a different movie before COVID and all the restrictions. And this is what they were able to do. Adam Wingard says now that, I planned a shorter movie because, nobody cares about the humans around the two monsters fighting. But I'm pretty sure that there was a different plan that would have resulted in a 2.5-hour movie if the restrictions of COVID had not reared their ugly head. I'm almost sure that they had to adjust for that. And because now we're looking more at an HBO Max movie instead of a theatrical movie, even though it is in theaters, in some places.
So there was very little human story going on?
There was enough that, it's not big, dumb monsters only fighting, but it didn't get in the way. That was good. It didn't get in the way.
Because that's usually the big flaw of those movies. Yeah. Is just nobody cares about the humans, right?
And there's even a tribute to the dude in the first one who believed in a Hollow Earth opening, right? That they drop one of them down through a hole that opens up into this giant Edenic, EDENIC, Edenic type of land. So in a way, we get to realize Hollow Earth in this movie, which was a strange little, Easter egg, oddly enough. But
so I've got two questions, and I guess you don't have to answer these questions. But okay, so how did King Kong get big enough to fight Godzilla?
Well, now what do you mean? He is bigger than Peter Jackson's Kong by a huge margin, right?
But in Kong Skull Island, he's pretty small compared to what Godzilla is. And I think the thing that they used was the idea is that Kong was set in 1973, so he's had about 30, 50 years to grow.
Oh, okay.
And now when you see him, I'm not gonna say he's got a big shaggy beard, but he's got a beard on him. Yeah. He's a much bigger great ape.
I am pleased to report that the Skull Walkers, who are my favorite part of Skull Island, actually, do make an appearance, and Godzilla like disposes of them so easily, it's kind of embarrassing. But they're there, and they're, you know, I always thought they were fun. And Skull Island is still the winner of that whole series. Am I right? Can we all agree
Pretty
that
good.
Skull Island is the best of the series?
I can't agree completely, but I like it.
I think that Skull Island is better than Peter Jackson's Kong, personally. But you know,
Yeah, but so what's going on with what's the guy's name? Is it Eric Taylor? No, it's the guy who plays Coach Eric Taylor in Friday Night Lights.
I'm not sure.
I always blank out on his name because I know his Coach, but he's in the Peter Jackson movie, and he's also in these movies as well.
Is he?
So
John C. Riley?
what?
John C. Riley?
Not John C. Riley. Man, my wife. I'll see if I can look this up real quick.
Because he was in Kong Skull Island, right? Right, Jeremy?
Right.
Gosh, I don't know.
No, you're thinking of oh no, Craig T. Nelson.
Isn't that the guy from Mystery Science Theater?
Oh, it's a guy from Coach, isn't it?
Yeah, Coach. You're talking about Coach.
Coach, what's his name?
Hey, Jeremy, was someone trying to get in? I heard the little bump.
I didn't hear anything.
It's Kyle Chandler. That's his name.
Al Chandler?
Kyle Chandler. So in the Peter
Like
Jackson movie,
COW?
he plays the actor, right?
Oh, okay.
You remember him, kind of the cowardly little,
Yeah.
that guy. And then in King of Monsters, in this one, he's the dad for Millie Bobby Brown's character.
Okay.
And that's what, like, so what are we doing here? Why is he keep cropping up in these? I dig him. I got no issue with it. I just like to think that maybe his dad or something, went to Skull Island, or in an alternate he's an alternate universe version of the actor or something like that.
Huh. So what is the major threat that they had to team up to battle at the end?
Oh, that's spoiler.
Is it a known entity though from another Godzilla movie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say they're doing a pretty good job of mining into that stuff and bringing some of these things back.
Okay.
Which again, like I said, part of the coolness is you're seeing stuff that would have been rubber suits or, cartoon animation at best, and now it's on the, full live, quote unquote, on the big theater.
So Ben, are you saying that that's a fact or that's a guess?
That's a guess, because I don't
Okay.
know why I thought I saw something earlier that showed Mechagodzilla in it.
Okay. Well, do you want me to spoil it? Yeah. I mean,
Oh, Mechagodzilla's in the movie?
yeah.
Like in this new one?
I don't know.
I was actually going
Mechagodzilla
to
is
say that
kind
as
of the
a
obvious
joke
one.
when you asked who the threat was.
It's such a last minute thing, though. And yeah, it's brought up earlier in the movie, but it's such a last minute thing when he's activated that it just seems so, secondary.
Who activates them? The Russians?
No, I probably shouldn't say. You don't want me to. Apex Industries. Does that?
Okay, so some nasty corporate people.
Right.
Yeah, and that's another point against it. That because nobody cares about that. It's one of those humanity must remain on top type things, which in other movies you would agree with, but in this one you're like, fuck no, man. I want the monsters to rule over me.
My second guess was Ghidorah.
See, Ghidorah would have made more sense, I think. And there is a moment, isn't there like a mention of Ghidorah or like a visual cue to him with the handprint on the
Yeah, I
can?
know. Ghidorah kind of makes a entry, but again, I don't want to.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some influence there. Ghidorah shows up, participates in one way or another.
Sort of, yeah, like an energy signature kind of way. But
Yeah.
that part was weird. Yeah, the big staff that Kong just kind of picked up and used it to open a door or something. That was bordering on supernatural, destiny type stuff, which I didn't expect in one of these kinds of movies. But yeah, it was interesting, and the introduction of the little girl character that could relate to Kong and could communicate with him through sign language. That was interesting too. She didn't get much screen time for her role, compared to her role. The things that she is able to do to move the plot forward, but it was good enough. So getting back to,
It would have been a very, very different movie if the characters just decided to spend the entire movie shoving skyscrapers up each other's asses.
That would have been a very different movie. You're right.
That would have been a very That's not the same one.
I was hoping for a repeat of that scene in the original King Kong versus Godzilla, where Kong rips the tree out of the ground and shoves it down Godzilla's throat. I was hoping that they would do that in the modern version, and it would look so much cooler. But I don't think it happened.
Because they have a couple of little moments, right?
Yeah.
But that would have been a real cool one. Or isn't there like in the original movie back then, isn't there one where you've got a giant building, they're both on either side of the building ripping it apart?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Right? And there's just a couple of little, I mean, it's got its little touches, right? It gives you a couple little touches to say, yeah, remember that movie, but I would have had no problem with more of them.
So you say this is better than Kong Island, Doug?
For me, it was, and it's Kong Skull Island. That was such a great movie. It really was. Look, we're all talking. I remember seeing The Mummy in theaters, and I was blown away. I had such a great time. And there's something to be said for something. It's like not every movie has to be a Titanic, Dances with Wolves, The Room, something, Schindler's List. Sometimes
you compared The Room to Schindler's List.
I think he's thinking of that other Room movie.
Oh, okay. Not the one with Tommy Wiseau where he.
No, I don't think that's what he's talking about.
Right. And so I think these are the kind of movies that right now there's going to be a lot of people who, especially critics, who are going to bash them and say, oh, it's Godzilla movies. And I think a lot of people are going to grow up with these, and later on they'll be saying things like, it's not, Godzilla versus Kong, but it's good,
Right.
I remember when The Mummy Returns came out, and it was being bashed because it wasn't as good as The Mummy. But I remember when The Mummy came out, it was being bashed as a horrible movie. And that's where I'm like, it's all in context. These are good popcorn flick movies. That's all they are. Don't expect to learn anything about the world or life in general.
No, I mean, obviously not. Yeah, I mean, it's a popcorn flick, like you say.
The Mummy movies were fun. Could we see
that last one was bad though? That last remake.
First two were decent.
The remake.
I only saw like the trailer to it, but my first thought when I watched it was, this is a Mummy movie that's embarrassed to be a Mummy movie.
Yeah.
Which one are you talking about, though, Ben?
The one with Tom Cruise.
No, he's talking about the old one with
Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, the Brendan Fraser ones.
Yeah, but that one was an actual Mummy movie. Tom Cruise just looked like they just want to do like a military action movie. They didn't want to do a Mummy movie.
I've not seen that one.
I'm kind of disappointed for Universal that they did have to put the kibosh on the whole Universal Monsters universe, because I love shared universe movies now. It's like,
I mean, that would have been awesome if they had the guts to actually get somebody that was smart to write it for them, right? I mean, actually let them do a good job.
Yeah, I don't get why they if they had that whole plan, why did they make such a mediocre movie by all standards for the first one?
I guess because they were setting everything
probably because they thought like Tom Cruise action movie was a safe bet, but again, you're doing a fucking Mummy movie.
Right.
Marketing it.
I mean, it's so sad because they can make these movies fairly cheap too, right? They could do the entire shared universe thing cheap, right? I mean, they don't have to get Tom Cruise, right? I mean the monsters sell themselves, and they can do it with like half or a quarter of the price.
I mean, I heard that the Invisible Man movie that Blumhouse did is actually pretty good.
Yeah, I did hear that was good. Yeah.
That one was fun. Well, I shouldn't say fun, but that was a good one. It's definitely got its scary moments. It's thriller end of it, and I like that.
Could we see Mummy show up in your universe?
I'd love to, man. That's been one of the challenges. How do you get different monsters? You see zombies and do them one way biologically. So could you do it with a mummy or something? I keep saying
would you
I'd
do
love
it with
to
a
try
mummy?
as vampire, but I never can get to it. I have a hard time with it.
Well, author Ronald Kelly, you've probably read him, right, at some point? Are you familiar with Ronald Kelly?
I'm actually not. No, I'm not familiar with Ronald Kelly.
Well, he kind of checks them off on a list, like he's written about every kind of monster and archetype there is, except for maybe like the creature from the Black Lagoon. But he's written about them all, and I think I can kind of see why authors would want to use that as like a trophy case type thing. I've written about monsters, written about werewolves, written about this.
Which I'm kind of wondering, are there any like mummy, not necessarily movies, but books or anything like that use mummies that weren't Egyptian?
I mean, there was the third Mummy movie was about the Chinese emperor one.
Yeah, it was like
Tibetan. I don't
or
think
something.
I've seen that one.
It had Yetis in it too.
Yeah, it had Yetis in it. Yeah.
Those bodies that showed up in the bog in Europe, like Ireland or Scotland or something. That would be a unique form of embalming, because they get so like tanned or leathery from being submerged in the swamp water. That would be a unique mummy,
I remember
how do you
reading
get
a
tanned
story.
if you're submerged in water?
I don't know. Leathered, cured. Is that the word? Cured?
Yeah,
I don't.
I think that'd be.
Look,
But I remember reading a story about I think it was a Tibetan monk that slowly starved himself to death, and while he was, doing that, he actually started mummifying himself while he was still alive.
oh man, that's wild.
Yeah,
That would be a good setup for a mummy story. Yeah.
There's a guy named Prahlad Jani that I think he's still alive, but he swears that he has not eaten in like 30 years and uses some sort of,
Light food or something.
meditation to stay
One
alive.
of those guys. He's probably bullshitting.
Yeah, he's probably eating white gases.
Well, people have sat and watched him for like hours or weeks, and not seen him, cheat. So I don't know what the deal is.
Wow.
Did they go to sleep?
I don't know if he slept either, to be honest. The person watching them probably did, yeah. But yeah, to get back to your writing, what would you say has been the most successful in your catalog? Which series or one-off?
The series. So
How many copies have you sold in total?
Yeah, the ones that sell are the Backpacking with Dinosaurs books.
Huh.
Those just keep selling. And that one's just a simple idea of a bunch of dinosaurs in a national park. Think of they took Jurassic Park, but it was me visiting national parks. Said, well, what if they need to put dinosaurs somewhere, and they found a restricted area, said we'll put it in here.
Like a
And
wildlife.
of course, you're going, people can't visit, but then people would try to sneak in. And so what's that like?
It's like a wildlife reserve, right?
Yeah, more like a wildlife reserve, but definitely one you're never supposed to enter.
Now, I don't know that you ever, I think dinosaurs just kind of exist in your world. And I don't know that you ever explain, was it through a genetics experiment like in Jurassic Park, or have they always just existed in yours, like an alternate timeline or something? Have you addressed that before?
I have. So I'll tell you, it's in the first book. I intentionally did not address it in the first one. I think I left a hint or two, but I'd come to the conclusion they were brought back kind of Jurassic Park style. It's that whole, can we use these to, companies bringing them back for the biological implications? How can we harness this power? Not necessarily militarily, but find the cure for cancer. Yeah.
Yeah. But you kind of just wanted to fast forward past that and get straight into it, so you don't look like you're hiding off Jurassic Park's theme.
Right. And that's the thing.
Throw yourself into it.
Right. And the same thing with when I did the Zombie Dog books, I'm still doing Zombie Dog books, but in those, I think we're in book, like I said, I'm writing book 5, and I still haven't said exactly why it happened. To me, it became more important to see the reactions and how you deal with this world than to try and say, well, here's the exact reason it happened. Because when I've done that before and read those, half the time it's like it becomes the linchpin Either you're really down with the reason they brought it back, and so you're down with the series, or you hate it and you're like, I'm done. And so for just that one, I was like, no, it's more important that it exists. How do you get through this? How do you face these challenges? Again, whether it's zombies, dinosaurs, Wendigos, or whatnot, it's that what do you do to shift your point of view, your perspective? How do you survive in that, right? That's the big challenge there. But I'll tell you what, I pulled something up because I was trying to remember for the kaiju stuff. There's a short story that I really liked called Godzilla's 12-Step Program by Joe Lansdale.
Wow.
If y'all haven't read it,
that.
Yeah,
it's just
That's
fun.
really funny.
It's real funny. I don't know if y'all have read Joe Lansdale before.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You know what you're getting. There's that humor, but there's a
Right.
lot of darkness in it. And so imagine the 12-step program that Godzilla goes through to keep him from destroying cities. Yeah. And it was, yeah, it's great.
The Drive-In trilogy. I read all of that, and I felt like there were some very flawed ideas in it. Like, for instance, the only food or drink they could get to was their own waste. Like, they could only drink urine. There was no water that was fresh. I felt like that really needed some fine tuning there. There should have been some fresh water source left, in that world. I don't remember. Maybe there was when they were in the jungle in book 2, but in part 3, when they when they didn't even realize where their van was, where they were parked, and they were like washing themselves and drinking that toxic water or whatever, that could have more work.
I really like The Thicket. If you read that,
Oh, yeah,
to
that's
me
a
is
great
one of my
book.
favorites.
Well,
Yeah, what's that? The Thicket?
The Thicket. His book,
Yeah.
The Thicket, is great.
It's a Western. It's really great.
Yeah.
Say something. What were you going to say, Ben?
I was gonna say no. I was thinking of The Bottoms. That was the book that I was thinking of.
I don't think I've read The Bottoms yet.
Regina's in the house.
Yes, Regina, did you have a question for Doug? Have you been listening?
You know what? I haven't been listening thus far, and I just got on, but I have started to read. Actually, I picked up the third book in the Zombie Dog series, and didn't realize, I guess, that it was the third one until I had kind of cracked it open, and then I got the story so far, and I was like, okay, screw it, whatever, I'll keep reading, and I'm really enjoying it. And I didn't, I think it's a testament to your writing that I was able to just kind of dive right in and immediately start enjoying it. But I'm also a fan of stories that start in media res, so if we can skip the first part of the story, sometimes I'm down with that. So
right.
But no, I'm really enjoying it, and also I love the name Murder for a Dog. I love when characters in fiction are specifically named after concepts or just abstract nouns, kind of in the same way that is done more commonly in other languages. I appreciate that aspect of it specifically already. So
I love it too. I tell you, it's actually kind of funny because, like he was like, I just thought it would be cool for the dog to be named Murder. And, it's just for it to be, the first one was called Cadaver Dog, and you could see this going where you're finding dead bodies and stuff. So for him to be Murder was just cool. And of all people, like I said, I've done a couple of these books. And so there's a Murder, another dog named Chainsaw and stuff like that. and the dog named for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But it was my father who was just kind of shaking his head and going, none of your dogs have names that anybody would name them because Murder is a horrible name for a dog.
It reminds me of. Have you ever seen the TV show Aqua Teen Hunger Force? It reminds me of that one episode. I want to introduce you to the Enforcer, and the dog says, "I want to be named Spaghetti."
That's it, right? And that's where it's like, so he was, that you have very hard sounds, vowels, the A, the E, the I. It's not nothing, no M's, nothing like that. The dog he owned, you'll like this. The dog he had owned and loved, and of course thinks it's a great name, was named Banshee. And so that's why the Velociraptor in Terrible Lizard is named Banshee. It was for my dad. And I think in the note I said for my dad, finally I'm using a good name for an animal or something like that.
I wonder if there will be other further stories about the main character of Terrible Lizard and Banshee.
Oh,
Oh,
I want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to. I wrote it. Like a lot of people who have talked with it, fell in love with Banshee, fell in love with the situation, the plight they're in. But the problem, I shouldn't say the problem, the obstacle I'm in is I'm charging ahead with the Zombie Dog books, and I've got one more book to write after Murder Dog that it's not going to end it all, but it'll give me a nice pause where I can go turn my attention to a Terrible Lizard 2, which Terrible Lizard 2, or should be like Terribler Lizard, or I don't know. When I think it's got one of the horrible titles where it's a memoir of my time in the police dinosaur unit. So I'm like,
how about
can I come up with a worse title to follow that? Yeah.
Horrible Lizard, Dysfunctional Lizard,
Right.
Relapsed Lizard? I don't know. No, Relapsed Lizard is no good.
The lizarding or something? I don't know.
Gosh. Is it about the same raptor?
Yeah, it would. Yeah, I want to follow this raptor and talk. Let's keep diving into these characters. There's so much more they can do.
Why does he have to be terribler? Why does he have to be? Can he be like? I don't know.
Oh well, so of course, Terrible Lizard is because that's what dinosaur translates to, right? Is Terrible Lizard.
Zombie Lizard.
Call it the
Cadaver.
Terrible
Cadaver
Lizard. Terrible Lizard 2 Electric Boogaloo.
There we go. See, it's like I'm trying to come up with some really bad names. I like that. The Electric Boogaloo.
Ghost Lizard, Zombie Lizard, Cadaver
right.
Lizard, Dead Lizard, but hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Yeah.
Gosh, now you got me wondering. But yeah, I like how you kind of you do all these elements of these genre type phenomenons, and you make them incidental to the world. You set your stories in. It's like every part of everyday life, and it's etched in very cleverly to everyday life. Like there's a lizard there's a velociraptor outside. I mean, obviously they have a place to put them, but that can happen in this world, and it's not, people aren't quizzical, nonplussed about it. They're not, beside themselves about it.
Oh yeah, I love it where it's like in that one, the T-Rex finally comes in, and the way the T-Rex is being used is in such a simple way that it's kind of like it's the idea is that this is an older T-Rex, and so it's a famous T-Rex from the police department. So the idea that they even have a T-Rex and how it's used, and they're talking about retiring the T-Rex, and it's got handlers instead of one person handling it. It's like I think it's got almost like a parade of people handling it, because by God, if it decides to go somewhere, how do you stop it and stuff?
I mean, there would be lawsuits and people arguing.
Oh yeah.
Against the idea of utilizing them as rescue or police animals. I mean,
yeah,
especially when you get to T-Rex, that we would have to be talking about like kingpin, like the biggest, deepest level of drug operations or terrorist, operations. I mean, world-ending practically type stuff to warrant that scale of animal, aggression as a response.
Oh yeah, that you would have to bring them in. But the other cool thing about a T-Rex is it also, for the research that they've done, it's got one of the most powerful noses on the planet. So that's where I go back to my search and rescue dog stuff and go, well, if you've got a lost person and you've got this giant nose, and so it's the idea is that people think, oh, you're going to use that to take out, like, I don't know, a tank of drug cartel people or something. And it's like, no, this is Sue, and Sue finds lost people because this T-Rex can smell them from so far away and so highly discriminate between people so easily that that's what they're best for. And of course, there's that idea that it wouldn't be a T-Rex. It's kind of like you could have a dog do something, but that doesn't mean you're going to have wolves doing something. It's got to be a domesticated version of it, right?
Yeah.
Or as domesticated as it can be. And that's where I started thinking like cats. Domesticated, but still, it's a cat. You own, Charlie. Charlie wants to go somewhere. Charlie's going to go somewhere, right? Technically domesticated. That doesn't mean it's like a dog exactly. And that's part of the fun is when the T-Rex or the Velociraptor starts saying, yeah, no, I want to go left. I want to go take a bite out of their butt or something. So how do you work with that?
We got another regular joining us, Phoenix. Hey, buddy. You
Hey.
enjoying the interview?
Well, I honestly haven't been listening yet. Not to be a downer, but I was out for a walk because the weather was so nice.
Well, we're talking to Doug Goodman about his Zombie Dog series and what I'm about to bring up on the screen, Shark Tooth Grin, which is the last one I wanted to bring up because I don't know a lot about it, so I saved it for last. This is like a were-shark type situation here.
Oh, yeah. So like earlier we're talking about, the universal monsters and stuff. And it's the idea of the Wolfman. And to me, it was coming up with it. And I said, well, I living in Houston, we're right here by the coast. And I said, well, what if it was a shark that you're turning into instead of a wolf? And that's the basic premise, except I'll say you're really looking at it from the standpoint of the split personality. So this is a story of multiple split personalities in the same person, and one of them's a wereshark.
That's sick as fuck.
I've been thinking about split personalities. Is it because you're talking about like the primal nature of like being a shark versus being human? Is it kind of that theme?
You do have a bit of that in there, but it's if you've got a person with split personalities who's then bit by the wereshark, right? Like the
so they already have split personalities.
So they already have split personalities. So now you've got this extra personality invading, right? Entering in there. So toward the end, what it really becomes is saying, well, how do we exercise that one personality? We all agree that we don't want that one in. So
I think that's a really interesting premise, actually. I was curious because I did a little bit of reading from the description of, I think Jeremy had put a description up of your writing. Is it, like when I think of this premise, I think a little bit like maybe a little bit more. I don't want to say young adult, even though we've had young adult guests on the show. But like, is it meant to be a little bit more lighthearted, or do you go into like darker territory? Because it sounds like with this book specifically, it sounds fun, honestly.
I say it's. I've been told it's not fun. This is not. I mean, this is. Probably the closest I did to straight up horror. It's not YA at all. It's definitely got a lot of people involved. Like I said, it's got exorcisms involved. So it's got split personalities fighting with each other, and sharks abounding everywhere. And how do you escape the sharks?
Yeah, well, I definitely missed that, but it still sounds interesting nonetheless. Experimenting with the theme of like different personalities and like how those kind of fight. Where did you get the idea? Like, what made you think of having a split personality person that becomes a shark?
Great question. It was, really was thinking through when I was trying to think, how do you write the story of werewolves and stuff? And there's a lot of that when you see werewolves, there's a lot of that whole, like I said, that animal versus human. And so, you're seeing that and you're thinking of the Hulk and, the Hulk, which with the latest version has really done a deep dive into it as a split personality scenario where all the different Hulks are different personalities. And that's, where I was really, when going with this one, it's the shark tooth grin that comes out, That
seems like a nice Pantera Megadeth type reference because they all like the black tooth grin mixed
right.
Sequence 7 and like a little bit of Coke in it. So that's a nice play on that. I'm guessing you might be a metalhead of the old school, right?
Oh yeah. I grew up with that. That's all the Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, Pantera. I've still got them around somewhere. Every once in a while, I put on one of their stations and go at it. They're fun.
I may be the only person I know who thinks the John Bush era of Anthrax was actually the best. everybody gives me a weird look when I say that, but I hate Joey Belladonna's singing. You know?
Really?
Yeah, I can't stand it.
You
But,
you are I liked them both, but yeah, you're definitely in the minority there.
I like John Bush's grungy, like guttural, like deep throat. Well, God, that's a horrible way to sing it. But basically that guttural, breathy singing. And hey, Ann, are you okay, girl?
Yeah. I'm my internet isn't good, and this mic may or may not work. But I'm gonna have to do this from the pool because I'm so fucking mad that I have to swim in circles till I stop wanting to commit homicide.
I'm sorry you're having a hard time. But we're talking to Doug Goodman, and we'll get back to that in a little bit, Ann. But so, Doug, I don't remember if you answered earlier or if we got excited and kind of skipped over it. But what did you say is the most successful of your books so far?
Oh, I've wrote a series that I don't know. I like to call it the New Profanity series, but it's with dinosaurs. There's a series of books I've written where it's backpacking with dinosaurs, mountain climbing with dinosaurs.
That's right.
And the new one is hunting with dinosaurs. Hunting with dinosaurs kind of brings all of these different themes together because, and that's one of the things I like. You've got the dinosaurs, you've got the park, you've got this, but one of the things that's really got me, you watch nature shows, right? National Geographic, some of this stuff. And they talk a lot about, animals, moving around, and you watch these predator prey ones. And I started really wondering that, one of the things we don't talk about enough that I find really interesting is, that connection. What if you had a place where dinosaurs existed on Earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
We always talk about the implications to humanity, to humans. We don't really talk quite so much about the other animals that are already there. So what happens if, to the wolves, the bears, the lions, these are animals that are in North America are apex predators, right? Aside from human, of the animal kingdom, these are the big guys. They've now had their thrones usurped, right? They are no longer the big ones. And so what does that conflict look like? What's going on there?
I'm guessing there's a long line to get into zoos all of a sudden. Like underground zoos with wolves just pounding on the door like, woof, 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 just fucking panicking.
Let me in.
You know what? That's kind of a downer, though. I guess they would be displaced. Yeah, would they be like hunted down by dinosaurs? Would they evolve? Would they evolve to be more omnivorous, like like cattle or some kind of like beast of burden? Gosh, that's a bummer. That's kind of.
I tend to think that what would happen is it would have an effect, but part of it was in hunting with dinosaurs. Like half the book is written from a wolf's perspective, being chased by raptors, growing up amongst dinosaurs, and how does it feed? How does it go there? It's the one that survives is the one that's stronger and a little tougher skinned and maybe a little bigger than most of the wolves. A little bit faster, it can evade some of these guys. So it's able to survive in there. And in it, hunting with dinosaurs is the hunter that's being hired to come in and kill some of the raptors, gets his butt kicked and is cornered off in a place with his little, he's a archer. And so he's the one who survived is the bow and arrow guy. So he's got his bow and arrow. He's struggling. Here's the raptors coming. Then all of a sudden in comes this wolf, starts tearing into the raptors, and then runs off chasing them. And he's sitting there like, what just happened? What was that? Did a wolf just what? And so that's the premise of the story is who is this wolf? How is this set up? If the raptors start coming after them, can they, a wild wolf and a human kind of come together? Right. I'm not talking like some sort of Mowgli kind of a thing, but, where it's like, oh, we all get along famously or something. This is still a wolf and a human, but they understand that maybe for the next 24 or 48 hours, they got to be on the same page here, right? Yeah. And so that's where it got real interesting. So that's why you're seeing I'm bringing in all the stuff that I I love playing with the idea of where humans and animals mix. And so this was a big collision course of it between a human and a wolf because of the dinosaurs.
That would be a very precarious ecosystem, that's for sure. I don't know if there would be enough prey left if they're all competing for, food like that. There might be a depletion of actual prey, like antelopes or gazelle or something like that.
Exactly.
They would probably have to put them in some sort of preserve. But well, Doug, I think we covered everything. You're welcome to stay as long as you want, but I think we're going to move on to other stuff other people have read this week, and what's going on with Ann and Zach and Regina and a few others here. These are all
wonderful.
So,
well, thank you for
I got
having
one more
me.
question for him. I
Go
do
ahead,
have one more.
Go ahead.
So,
sure.
what triggers the shark transformation? The transformation into the were shark.
I also would like to know more about the were shark.
Oh, so yeah, no, it's being bitten by the were shark.
No,
Oh,
no,
but
but like
what triggers it?
Yeah, so I mean, he's like a human during certain times, right? And then he turns back into a shark.
Yeah, what's his full moon?
Yeah,
It's when in it I'm trying to remember back. I said when blood hits the silvered waters when the moon's above. So when there's blood in the water under the moon, that's when the were shark comes out.
Right on.
and so he has to run to the ocean and jump in before he turns.
No, he doesn't have to. No, it's more like the
like-
Wolfman or something. So you've got the
He's,
teeth,
he's
you
like
got the
sharks.
fin, but you can breathe outside on the land.
Okay,
is
so
he like a street shark?
Yeah, like a street shark scenario.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, like street shark. So it's but one of the cool things was then going through all this and trying to think, well, what kind of shark was it? And I told him explicitly, I said, no, I want it to be a bull shark. Those things are mean and nasty and cause more bites than any other shark. So make it a bull shark.
I am curious, what is the antagonist? Is it another were shark, like maybe a goblin shark or a hammerhead, or?
Yeah, there's that in there too. I'm not going to give it all away, but
Hammerheads are really freaky looking. I mean,
they are.
True.
Oh,
Really.
but yeah, the goblin shark and the hammerhead. I loved writing those as well.
So
Just
you did
getting
put a
that
goblin shark
description,
in
just
here.
taking into it.
So you did put a goblin shark in here?
Oh yeah,
Those things are weird.
you have to. It's sharks. I was like, no.
Those
Goblin
things
sharks
are-
with that jaw that kind of comes out. Oh,
Those things are wild, yeah. And you might do something with if there are other books in this concept as a series. You might do something with alligators or crocodile or jar eels, their distant cousin as well.
oh right, yeah. Those would be cool, right?
Mhm.
And like I said, here in Houston, we got gators all around, so you could definitely see some sort of were gator or something.
Wow. Yeah, boy, you're going to be burning up soon in Texas. I heard you guys have really extreme heat down there, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it'd be better than freezing. The water pipes freezing and breaking.
It's definitely better, but remember, I would say for Houston, the H in Houston stands for humidity, heat, and hurricanes.
Mm.
So, and that's what we get.
I hope you haven't had to endure too much natural disasters in your area.
Just enough to influence the writing. So yeah, we've evacuated a couple of times, and I think this year we were blessed that no pipes bursting, nothing like that. Only without power for a day or two. It was not. Seriously, it was not that bad. I don't know where y'all are located, but for me, it got down in the 50s in the house, and I've seen photos. There's people where it got down in the 30s, 20s, and much colder. We did
Yeah.
fine. I can't complain.
Like here in Iowa, like when it gets in the 50s, it's like time to break out the short sleeve shirts.
Right. I remember. Yeah, I lived in Chicago for a while. I remember there was definitely that moment where you're like, oh, it's cool. It's nice weather now. It's practically balmy around here. It's warm up. And here we're like bundled up because it's the opposite. For us, cold is hard, heat is easy, right?
Well, thank you, Doug. And
I had another question.
Go ahead, Phoenix.
Well, I don't know if this was actually a connection, and you said that you didn't want to spoil it, but I am curious. Like when I thought of I don't remember exactly what idea it related to, but I thought of how supposedly birds evolved from raptors. So I don't feel like the premise is really that far off from what happened in evolutionary history. Is that valid? Like, because I wonder about this idea that, so when you were talking about how the animals become like, so it's basically the dinosaurs are no longer the top of the food chain. What interests me is why animals, I'm interested in that perspective of the wolf struggling in that kind of environment,
Well,
and how ultimately those animals are the ones that make it.
Well, he said
Yeah. So how do they make it?
You said the wolves and lions were no longer the top of the food chain because of dinosaurs. That's what you were talking about, right?
Well, so if they're no longer the top of the food chain, right? And that's thank you for bringing it up because everyone goes like, so you could see that they get hunted out, right? But like he's talking with what I think it's called punctuated evolution, there'd be the response to that. So the idea is that there might be, and I'm not gonna say for certain, but it's one of those in this fictional idea, there might be the lion that is able to fight back a dinosaur.
Right.
What
You'd
the
be
heck kind
breeding
of a
super
lion are we
lions or
talking
super
about?
wolves potentially.
Right.
Yeah.
Or very heightened, very,
Right.
much more powerful animals than what we're used to. And now you've got that parading around the world too. So
yeah, I feel like that's a really thoughtful premise actually, because the problem with Jurassic Park as an example is the idea that only the dinosaurs remain top dog. While, even in the movies, like, the dogs are getting eaten alive, and like that kind of makes sense, except for the fact that like maybe a wolf would put up a fight. Like maybe you would end up with these weird breeds. I just find that really interesting.
Right.
And it sounds
so
it sounds like you had thought about the implications of that.
I think it has some great implications, and that's I haven't talked to the publisher, but what I would love to see in the next book is pretty much, let's call it an all-out war between dinosaurs and animals, the ones that have gone through this punctuated evolution, and what does that look like, and then humanity caught in between it. Yeah.
So are humans? Because I'm a little bit curious. Like, are humans the top of the food chain then in your universe?
In this universe, there is much that I'm trying to. I still see him as top of the food chain. It hasn't been taken over yet. But that's where I would like to go, is see where they're no longer.
Well, I keep thinking about the brutality of nature, right? With kind of the way you described this book, because like the only reason why humans would be the top of the food chain is because of technology, most likely. Because I feel like if you look at the way that animals act in nature, like they're way more brutal. Like lions, obviously, they don't even need to be super in some way unless it's like battling like a Tyrannosaurus Rex or something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but if you, like you're saying, if you take us and just put us out in the middle of Africa or something, yeah, a lion's gonna take us out. It's the technology that saves us, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I like it because it sounds like it's a little bit of a contrast to Jurassic Park, which is probably my most familiar entry point to this kind of premise.
Oh, absolutely, it is. I mean, and it is for a reason. The book, the movie, that stuff was epic and always will be.
Do you think? I'm just curious. Do you think that the idea that you could get the DNA from a mosquito to actually be pretty realistic? Because like I have a hard time imagining that happening in modern times.
So do I, and it seems like every couple of years they'll put out something that says, yeah, that's really not the way it'll. If we ever do get to the point of bringing dinosaurs back, it won't be from mosquito larvae or mosquito blood.
Yeah,
it'll be some other way.
The question just keep coming. Eli Cash. So if dinosaurs survived, what about dire wolves? Those things are said to be huge. Those do not exist in your world. Those were left behind in what, Precambrian times or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Those. Yeah. So you were in the world that is the what I'm calling the new profanity. That one, you don't have mammoths or dire wolves, but that's where I think that's a great question, because the analogy I'm getting to is that maybe it's on its way back. How is the elephant going to survive? I'm not going to say it's going to turn into a mammoth, but it'd probably have to become a thicker skin and find some other way to fight them off. Same thing with the wolf. So when I conceive of it, dire wolf. I'm absolutely thinking of that kind of thing. Yeah. And in fact, I think because I'm a Lord of the Rings nut, I think the main character in it, when the guy with the bow, when he finally decides to give a name to this wolf, he calls him Warg. Yeah, just like in Lord of the Rings. So obviously my mind is thinking in that direction too.
What is it about Lord of the Rings that inspired this? Because they do have similar themes of like speculative elements, but they seem completely different in a lot of ways. Like Lord of the Rings was like more epic fantasy, and I guess yours might be like a horror, evolutionary history. What's the phrase? Mashup, I guess.
Yeah,
Mashup.
mine is definitely the mix up of wilderness horror, like I said, the biological horror and stuff like that, especially these books. Some of them, obviously Terrible Lizard is more of a family fun adventure. It's not horror the way this one is. The Lord of the Rings, though, man, it's got so much horror in it. And it's one of those, it's just always percolating in the back of your head. At least it is for me.
Spider.
Yeah, no, that's cool that you like Lord of the Rings, actually, because I've been thinking about that book. I just recently read it.
The whole thing, or
I didn't read The Hobbit. I know they say to start there, but I had only bought the 3-volume copy, and so I didn't have a copy of The Hobbit, and I just wanted to dive in and read it. But yeah, I mean, I think one thing that stood out about The Lord of the Rings was the way in which, like, I think the scene with Rohan, I think that was his name, that was pretty brutal when hopefully this isn't a spoiler, but I guess it is a spoiler, but I'm going to go for it.
It was written in the 1930s or something, so I don't think it's a spoiler.
Well, that's fair. Yeah. So when he commits suicide, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Like that freaked me out. Like there are other moments in the book too, but that was one of them. So I find it interesting that you define horror in this like kind of a little bit looser way of like, it's more tapping into the horrors of the human mind. And I think, not even the human mind in this case, because it's animals, but nature, like our fear. Like, I feel like you're going into this primal fear, which I find really interesting. So
thank you. Yeah, that's there.
Yeah, that's cool.
But Doug, wow, all the questions, man. Everybody had to get one in again. But I think, now we're ready to move on because Ann's got a lot going on, and I want to give her a chance to vent, and Jason McShitty connection. He's been trying to get in consistently for the last hour, and I may or may not let him in. I don't know yet.
Let him in.
But Doug, I think that this overall was a huge success because, like I said, everybody had some questions, and you've got a varied enough catalog that, everybody had a different attracting point, So.
Well, thank you. And really, thanks for reading. I appreciate it, and thanks for having me on.
Okay, I hope things end well for our boy Murder over in the Dead Dog series.
Always. Y'all take care.
Growing a tad. Have a good
thanks for coming, Doug.
So,
thanks, y'all.
All right, Gregor, I know what you want to get to what you've read this week, and before you have to go, I'm guessing, right?
Who just left?
Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do.
Feel free to wait on me because I'm still like trying to stop wanting to chew people's faces off.
I'm really sorry you guys having such a hard time, babe. I wish I could help.
Humanity really just should be nuked off the planet. I say we give the codes to